I turn on the light over the desk, and I open up all my books, and I begin to look at this little piece of paper. And at first, I was very angry. I was angry because I could not find the list of ingredients. You know, where it's minimum daily requirements of all of the ingredients. I said, Bob gave me the wrong piece of paper. I can't find the ingredients any place. And then I looked here and I said, oh, wait a minute. Interesting plants. I recognized most of them because they're in the herbal books, and I opened up my little herbal Bible and began to study them over and so on. But you see, I wasn't studying them to find out what the herbalists say about the herbs, because I knew that they were good. What I was really looking for was what was in each one of these. You see, as a medical journalist, I know that the cells need 57 nutrients. And the high on the list of 57 nutrients were the 20 amino acids. Now, why do the cells need 20 amino acids? Because they're human cells. And human cells need 20 amino acids in order to produce a human protein. All of the proteins of your body were manufactured by the cells themselves, and they have to have all 20 amino acids. In fact, if you only have 19 amino acids, when it gets ready to produce a protein molecule, the cell simply cannot produce a protein molecule. It's got to have all 20 amino acids. Half of the amino acids are known as non-essential. The other half are known as essential, which is a misnomer. All amino acids are essential in order for your body or your cells to produce a protein molecule. The reason they're called non-essential is because the cells are smart enough to manufacture half of them themselves. But all amino acids are essential. So that's the first thing I begin to look for. Do they have all of the essential amino acids? I went through all of the various plants, and I found all 20 amino acids. Put down a mark. Like, yep, contains all 20 amino acids, even the most rare, even the tryptophan. It contains all amino acids. Then the next thing I began to look for were the vitamins. Now, what's a vitamin? See, we don't know what a vitamin is. We've been taking them from since they were that tall. You know, they come in various sizes, like dinosaurs and a few things like this. But when you ask the question, what is a vitamin? I've had some people say, well, it's something you get at the health food store. You find in little brown bottles on a shelf, you see. It's a food supplement. Isn't that what we've been told? We've all been told it's a food supplement. It's not a food supplement. It is a food vital. In other words, when our scientists begin to study what makes this body tick, they found out there's certain things in the body needed in order for the body to function the way it's supposed to. And these chemicals were identified then and labeled. And the first one they found and labeled was vitamin A. I'll bet you can't guess what the next one they found was called. Oh, that's right. Very imaginative at that time, you see. And the next one they found was vitamin C. Oh, we're on a roll, aren't we? Except we ran into a problem. The problem is that the scientists found certain chemical signatures of the chemicals that were almost like vitamin B. So they went back to vitamin B, erased that, changed that to vitamin B1. Then the next one they called vitamin B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, right up to vitamin B17. All right? But you see, the term vitamin means vital. All vitamins are important. All vitamins are necessary. It's part of the cell's menu. They need all vitamins. So that's the next thing I look for. Does it have all vitamins? And that one was easy. If you look under alfalfa in that particular preparation, you find it says contains all known vitamins. That one's easy. Mark it off. Contains all known vitamins. The next thing I began to look for were the minerals. Now, what in the world is a mineral inside the body? Why do we need minerals? We know we're supposed to take them because we've all been told we are supposed to take them. But what is the function of a mineral inside the body? Do you know that the amount of active minerals inside the body right now wouldn't even fill a thimble as big as the little finger? Yet those trace minerals are so vitally important. Why are they vitally important? What's the function of a mineral inside the body? Maintain the electrolyte balance? No. No. Let me explain the function of a mineral. It's so amazing. You see, if you study the cells of the body, you'll find that all of the activity done inside the cells, all activity is done by enzymes. You can use the word enzyme, or another word would be factory worker. anything done inside a cell is done by an enzyme. Anytime the DNA needs to communicate with an enzyme, it sends an electronic message out to the enzyme. If you study an enzyme, you find that an enzyme is a protein molecule with a trace mineral at the end. Each trace mineral has its own electrical frequency. So the DNA sends an electronic message out to the enzyme and is picked up by the trace mineral. And the trace mineral tells the enzyme what it's supposed to do and where it's supposed to go and how it's supposed to function. Without the trace mineral, that enzyme cannot function. You see, the enzyme is the walkie-talkie, or the trace mineral is the walkie-talkie of the enzyme. So we need all trace minerals because we have thousands of enzymes in the body, and each group of enzymes has its need for its own trace mineral. If a trace mineral is missing, then those groups of enzymes simply cannot function. And do you know that the enzymes are the things that actually utilize the vitamins? And if you don't have the trace minerals, the enzymes don't work, and if the enzymes don't work, you can't even use the vitamin even if you had it. So the next thing I began to look for were the minerals. I found all the minerals. Oh, I was very excited by now, and it didn't take too long before I found the linoleic acid and the lecithin, and these are the essential oils. And by the time I got through and totaled everything up, I found we had 57 nutrients, all in proper sequence, in proper ratio. I could hardly wait till I saw Bob the next day. I went back the next day and I says, Bob, do you know what you've got? He says, yeah, it's a good product. I says, no, Bob, do you really know what you've got? He says, well, yeah, it tastes good. I said, you can't say that. But what have you got? He says, well, you tell me. I says, well, let me put it this way. If I wanted to reward Larry Lymphocyte for doing such a fantastic job for keeping me healthy, I'd say, Larry, I'm going to take you out to dinner. What would you like to eat? He'd probably say, KM. Because KM is a good example of a cell food. And it's rather exciting when you consider the source of KM. Consider the source that, in fact, it was a scientist 67 years ago who understood what the plants had to offer. Understood that we were animals, some more so than others. But as animals, we relied upon the plant kingdom for sustenance. And he also understood the animals because he had a PhD in that area also, and he simply took the knowledge of what he could get out of the plants and what the animals needed, he put it together, and 67 years ago he came up with the cell food. And that's why it works. It's nothing more than that, but it's nothing less. And that's why it is such a good product and why so many amazing things happen. Because if all of the cells are fed properly, then the cells are going to be healthy. And if the cells are going to be healthy, then you are going to be healthy. Can you see how simple that is? All right, the next part is cell exercise. Cell exercise. As an exercise physiologist, I recognize right away that the exercise industry only teaches us two types of exercises. Aerobics, which is designed to exercise the heart, the cardiovascular system, and strength. Those are the exercises designed to strengthen the striated muscles. In fact, it's almost as if the entire exercise industry thinks of this human body as being one big heart supported by muscles. And in fact, if any other part of the body is ruined while you're in the process of exercising the heart and the muscles, that's just the price you have to pay. For example, Dr. George Sheehan, a confirmed long-distance runner and a cardiologist, has made the statement, if you're going to run, you've got to be willing to pay the price, which is shin splints, ankle problems, knee problems, lower back problems, and blisters. And if you're not willing to pay the price, don't run. You see, what we need to understand is this is a whole community of cells, and all cells rely upon each other for what is known as homeostasis, or proper chemical balance. And therefore, all cells have the capability of becoming stronger or weaker depending upon activity. Therefore, rather than exercising the old-fashioned way, exercising only the muscles or only the heart, What we need to do is we need to become more sophisticated. We need to exercise the most advanced way we know of, and that is a cellular exercise. Now, in order to do that, we need to come up with some very scientific ways of doing this. Let's get right down to the very basics. The very basic is that every exercise you can think of has one thing in common. The common denominator of all exercises is opposing gravity. Isn't that right? Think about that for a minute. If you do push-ups, what force are you pushing away from?
Gravity.
If you sit down on the floor and do sit-ups, what force is pulling the back down?
Gravity.
If you're going to walk, jog, or run, these are aerobic exercises. You've got to take the center of gravity. It's around here someplace, right? To some of us, it's moved slightly forward. But regardless of where you find it, you've got to take the center of gravity, move it off its base till you start falling forward, and then you've got to oppose gravity by taking a step. Or you're going to fall on your face. Weightlifting, the word weight by definition is mass times gravity. Even swimming. What is it that pulls down on the water hard enough to make it dense enough to have something to resist against when you swim? Gravity. So you see, the common denominator of all exercises, quite simply, is opposing gravity. Now that we've established that very simple fact, let's build upon it. We go back to Albert Einstein to find the next thing we're going to use. Albert Einstein says the human body cannot tell the difference between acceleration, deceleration, and gravity. These are two other forces. Two forces we've never thought of harnessing up when it comes to exercise, but they exist. We have learned to cope with them. We learn to use them when it comes to transportation. You get into an automobile, you step on the accelerator, and you feel a force pushing you back in the seat. That's not gravity, that's the force of acceleration. It's real. You want to slow down or stop, you step on the decelerator or the brake, and you feel a force pushing you forward. That's not the force of gravity, that's the force of deceleration. It's real. These two forces exist. The body cannot tell the difference between acceleration, deceleration, and gravity. Gravity is always like this. We've been experiencing acceleration and deceleration like this. All we have to do is put it in the same plane as gravity. That means vertical. As soon as you line them up with gravity, you've developed a revolutionary new form of exercise called rebound exercise. And it is a true cellular exercise. Now, to demonstrate this form of exercise, I brought with me a piece of equipment. This particular piece of equipment was developed in Hong Kong when I was a paid consultant to the Hong Kong government. I was over there to teach the health benefits of the healthy cell concept to 7,000 firemen and 28,000 police officers. I took with me 12 pieces of equipment. 3 weeks later, I was invited into Hilton Chon Ling's office. He was the chairman of the Hong Kong government. He said, "Mr. Carter, we have accepted rebound exercise as the form of exercise, but we cannot accept the equipment." All 12 pieces of equipment have fallen apart. He then introduced me to 3 engineers. And then he gave us the assignment. In 1 week, I want to have a better piece of equipment. And it was one of the most exciting experiences of my life to be able to work with 3 engineers to simply dismantle, take apart the entire concept and the function and put it back together the best way possible. The first thing we studied was the mat. We found we could not use nylon, plastic, or canvas because all 3 of those fabrics stretch. We went to Permatron. It's a DuPont fabric, but it doesn't stretch. It's also very resilient. Therefore, 10 years from now, this mat will be the same, have the same resiliency as it has right now. The next thing we studied were the springs. The springs are number 80 carbon steel springs. Now, you can get other springs, a 60 carbon steel spring or a 72 carbon steel spring. A 60 carbon steel spring stretches. A 72 carbon steel spring is brittle, it breaks. We went to the number 80 alloy carbon steel spring and simply solved the spring problem. But you notice the springs are not directly connected into the frame. They're connected to a bolt that goes through the frame. The reason we did that is that if you connect a spring directly to the frame by drilling a hole, then every time you bounce on the mat, the spring will wear the frame out in 36 different places. We could not accept that. So we put a bolt through the frame. It's more expensive, but it's more durable. And now we've simply got a frame that does not wear out. If you have a frame that doesn't wear out, a mat that's very resilient, and the springs that don't stretch, now you've got a piece of equipment we could take back to Hilton Chon Ling and show him that we had a piece of equipment that would meet or exceed the standards necessary for the Hong Kong Police Department. To use this piece of equipment, we simply sit it down on the floor like this, check all of the springs to make sure they're all in their proper place, and then simply snap it open. The next thing we have to do is put the legs in place. But you notice the legs do not screw on. there must be some Chinese axiom that says, anything that can be screwed on can be screwed up. So rather than having threads, these are held in place by springs, providing positive tension. So once the leg is snapped into place, you don't have to worry about it going into place. Once we have the legs in place, all we have to do is set it down on the floor like this, and now we're ready to participate in what is now known as the most efficient, the most effective form of exercise yet devised by man. Rebound exercise. All I have to do is change into my exercise clothes. So if you excuse me for just a few moments. Thank you very much. Now, as I stand here in front of you, I weigh approximately 165 pounds. And if I don't do anything at all, I still weigh 165 pounds because that's the amount of gravity pulling down on every cell in the body. But something miraculous happens when I begin to move up and down. As I start to move up and down like this, I no longer weigh 165 pounds at the bottom of the bounce. In fact, at this height right here, I weigh approximately 200 pounds. That's a 25% increase in resistance. Now, I've got to ask you a very technical question. How many cells of the body share with that increase in resistance? All cells share that increase in resistance? If you go back to medical physiology, you'll find that every cell has the unique capability of automatically adjusting to its environment. We've just increased the environment by 25%. What has to happen to every cell in the body? They have to become stronger. Tell me, do they have a choice? Isn't that exciting? Even if I have to take my fingertips and put them in my pockets like this and move up and down like this, even the fingertips on my hands in my pockets are going to get stronger, and they don't have a choice. Now, keep in mind, I qualified for the Olympics twice. I had some of the best wrestling coaches in the world telling me you had to do some of this and some of this to exercise this. And what I'm telling you is diametrically opposed to everything you've learned about exercise. That if you move up and down like this is a cellular function, and every cell in the body, regardless of where it is going to become stronger. That's part of the theory of rebound exercise. It's what we presented to the people of Hong Kong. Well, when I came back from Hong Kong, I had a letter on my desk from NASA inviting me to go to Ames Research Center to teach rebound exercise to our astronauts. Well, why do the astronauts want to know about rebound exercise? Well, in 14 days of space flight, they lost 15% of their bone mass. They could not jog as you and I could jog, because if they were to trip and fall, they would shatter. So they needed a non-traumatic aerobic exercise. And they felt that rebound exercise was it. Well, I agree with them. You get up here, and you do this. And will this qualify as an aerobic activity? Sure. But it's non-traumatic. Rebound exercise eliminates 7/8 of the shock to the skeletal system, which means I've eliminated shin splints, ankle problems, knee problems, lower back problems, and other problems. But if this is a good aerobic exercise, what about this one? Why, that'd be even better, right? And if this is a good aerobic exercise, there's nothing to stop you from carrying on an aerobic activity like this. In fact, if you want to get ready for the athletic events, such as basketball, football, track, racquetball, or anything else like that, well, all you have to do is carry on a more vigorous activity. And in fact, if you want to compete for the Olympics, why, there's nothing to stop you from carrying on a very, very, very rigorous aerobic exercise like this. The most important thing is I've just finished my aerobic exercises. But I've got to warn you, I've left a few things out of the aerobic exercises. I've left out barking and biting dogs, 10-speed bicycles, carbon monoxide poisoning, mailboxes that show up unexpectedly. I've left out rain, sleet, snow, gravel, grass, curbs. I've replaced it with the television, the air conditioner, the radio, or the heater. Notice I've got a family room, so I don't have to worry about getting babysitters. And notice that one size fits all feet. Which means that I don't have to worry about buying expensive running shoes. It also means that if I'm not using it, my wife can use it. If she's not using it, it's available to the children. And if they're not using it, Grandma and Grandpa can use it. How many people need aerobic exercises? How many people need the shock of hitting a hard surface? Very good. So it's not only good for the astronauts, right? It's good for everybody. The next exercise I'd like to present to you then is what we call the strength exercises. Keep in mind, people go to health spas, spend a lot of money for membership. Their purpose is to become stronger. Well, Let's follow some simple formulas of strength. If you go to an exercise physiologist and ask him, what is the formula for strength? He'll tell you stress times repetition equals strength. Isn't that right? You grab a hold of a barbell and you do this. And you do it over and over and over again. And you can depend on becoming stronger. But you know as well as I do that if you do this with a barbell, you're going to reach a plateau. And when you reach a plateau, your instructor will tell you to go to a heavier weight. You put on heavier weights and you still do the same thing over and over again. We're going to use the very same formula. Stress times repetition equals strength. Only this time, instead of worrying about the plateau, instead of adding weight, all we have to do is add altitude. You see, the higher you go, the faster you come down. The faster you come down, the greater is the force of deceleration. The greater the force of deceleration, the more you load the springs. The more you load the springs, the greater is the force of acceleration. You add the increased acceleration to the increased deceleration to the gravitational pull, you've developed a whole new G-force. At this height, I weigh 2 Gs. That's twice the gravitational pull. That means that every cell in the body has to start to become twice as strong. You see, I'm 49 years old. I've never lifted weights in my life. But at age 49, I can still do over 100 one-arm push-ups. And I used to brag about that. Till my son did 125 just to shut me up. My son Darren is presently 5 times Washington State wrestling champion, 2 times national wrestling champion. He has never lifted weights. He didn't have to. He was involved with the most efficient, the most effective form of exercise yet devised by man all of his life. All right, now, what I've presented to you is something that simply makes all other exercise systems obsolete. Think about that for a minute. That's pretty good, don't you think? We are taught aerobics, and we're talking about strength. We've done that right here. But the most important exercise is usually left out. The exercise for health. Have you ever heard about that? The health exercise. You see, your health is your wealth. If you have your health, you can go after your wealth. But if you don't have your health, you'll spend your wealth to try to regain your health. So if I could show you an exercise that would help you become or maintain your health the rest of your life, I don't think there's anything more important that I could present to you today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you the health exercise. Are you ready for this? Okay, here we go. According to NASA, this is the most important single physical activity you could do on a daily basis. Can you handle this one? There it is, right here. Now, don't get me wrong. If you want aerobics or endurance, you need to jog or run or do something like this. If you want strength, you need to go to a health spa and lift iron or do something like this. But if your purpose for exercising is for the health of it, all you need to do is this. Because this is the exercise that will stimulate the activity of the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is found in Chapter 31 of Medical Physiology. The lymphatic system is a system of tubes that start in the toes and fingertips and work up throughout the entire body. The lymphatic system is not connected up to the heart, so it doesn't have a pumping system other than it has to depend on the millions of one-way valves inside the lymphatic system. In other words, it's a hydraulic pressure system. Anytime there's pressure below the one-way valve opens up. Anytime there's pressure above the one-way valve, it stays closed. As soon as you understand that very simple concept, you can understand how this exercise actually stimulates the lymphatic system. You see, when you go up, the one-way valves are closed. When you come back down, the pressure below opens up the one-way valves, and when you get back down, they slam shut again. You do this over and over again, those one-way valves open and close. That's millions of one-way valves, 100 times a minute. The purpose for the lymphatics, it's an internal vacuum cleaner, having the capability of sucking out toxins, poisons, trash, and metabolic waste, making it possible for the oxygen and nutrients to feed the cells. In fact, if every one of us had a little red label across our forehead that said, "Shake well before using," we'd all be healthier. All right, we've just explained to you then the most efficient, the most effective form of exercise yet devised by man. All about that exercise can be found in the book, The New Miracles of Rebound Exercise, a book that has already sold over 1.3 million copies and still going strong.
How long do you exercise?
How long do you exercise? Let me give you rules of thumb. 5 times a day is better than 3 times a day. 3 times a day is better than 1 time a day, and 1 time a day is better than no time at all. The next rule of thumb is exercise until you're huffing and puffing. That's going to be different for everybody. But when you're huffing and puffing, that means you're in the aerobic mode. Nobody has to tell you when you're tired, right? Okay? Nobody has to tell you when you're breathing hard. The next rule of thumb, the third rule of thumb, is never go through a pain threshold. You see, you have an internal doctor telling you when you've had enough. And if you follow those 3 rules of thumb, nobody will ever have to tell you how much exercise you need. We've got some other formulas, though. NASA indicates that rebound exercise is as much as 68% more efficient than jogging. Therefore, you can take anything you've learned about jogging, cut it in half and put it on a rebounder and get an equivalent exercise program. Now, we have been talking about rebound exercise, the most efficient, the most effective form of exercise yet devised by man. Something that's already made it to the White House, something that some of our top athletes are using, something that a lot of people are using because sometimes that's the only exercise they can do, but many times they're using it because that's the best exercise they can get. But regardless of how good it is, we recognize it's only 1/4 of the healthy cell concept. Anybody involved with rebound exercise should be involved with cell food, don't you think? And anybody involved with cell food should consider rebound exercise. Wouldn't that be fair? All right, and anybody involved with cell food and cell exercise should be involved with cell environment, making sure that you get the right water. And anybody involved with cell environment, cell exercise, and cell food will naturally gravitate towards good cell communication. The synergistic effect of all 4 of these will help the cells to become healthy. Now that you've heard the healthy cell concept, I'm going to give you an assignment. And this is the assignment. All right? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the cancer answer. Thank you very much.
Rebound Beyond Aerobics, the newest, most modern approach to fitness, the modern alternative to high-impact aerobics. This exciting new video features Sylvia Ortiz, one of the country's most famous